Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's show with SportsbookReview.com. I'm your host, Lee Martin, and yes, we're here to talk some UFC. And this upcoming weekend, I know I feel like I say this about every single fight every week, but I am so excited for this fight because we have several heavyweight fights. And in the main event, we have Curtis Blaydes against the Black Beast and Derrick Lewis, and this is going to be a beautiful fight. So joining me today to help me break down the entire main card and give us their top picks, we have SBR's UFC expert David Manyun and MMA Mania's lead host Matt Ryan. Before we get into all the good juicy stuff, like always, give this video a like and subscribe to our channel so you never miss a show. Now let's get to it. Before I get into anything relating to this upcoming weekend, like always, I just want to rewind a little bit to this past weekend and just recap what happened. We had UFC 258 with Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns, and boy, was I wrong about them going the distance because Kamaru Usman finished him with a TKO. But I just wanted to hear Dave first. How did your Saturday go?
Do you know what? Overall, it was pretty good. I was surprised myself that fight ended so soon. But Usman's jab was on point, boy. It's going to be a struggle to beat that man, I tell ya. See, I can name 5 guys right now who have better striking than Kamaru Usman and would finish Kamaru Usman in a striking match. But that's the problem. You know, you're a grappler, you come against Usman. He's got these absolute beautiful power shots out of nowhere taught from Henry Hooft. And then, you know, you're a grappler, you come against Usman. And he was close to performing at the Olympics in wrestling. So it's a lose-lose for that division right now. And with the thoughts of Masvidal, Usman 2 happening, that doesn't tickle my fancy at all. But then I'll look across the division and there's nothing really there. And you know, I hate to say it, but Colby Covington is looking like, you know, the guy who gave Usman his best fight to date. So, the event overall was great. And obviously the shock of the night was 3-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion Rodolfo Vieira getting submitted in the second round, which I thought was incredible. Now, I thought it was going to be the other way around, and I thought Vieira was going to get that done quick, and he nearly did in that first round, but he gassed them arms out. Hernandez came through, and he got the job done, and then it was a sight to see, and luckily I took the under in that fight rather than backing Vieira. The reason I didn't back Vieira was because of those odds. Those odds were ridiculous, even though I did think, you know, his elite jiu-jitsu was going to get the job done. You know, muscle is not a thing to be carrying in the UFC. You do not want a heap of muscle because it's no good. And I even heard Daniel Cormier making fat jokes during that, saying that, you know, holding fat is better than holding muscle. But yeah, it was a great event. Really enjoyed the event as a whole. And again, you know, like you said, this week we've got another exciting event, and that's what it is with UFC. It's not, you're not going to get a team who's boring versus, like, it's not going to happen. You might have a couple boring fights on that card, but there's going to be a banger every single week. And let's get at it.
Exactly. I actually wrote a UFC 258 recap article, and I mentioned Anthony Hernandez in there because he was a dog that submitted. And also, Poliana Viana. Is that her name? Yes. Poliana Viana. Yeah. I've said her name so many times that I don't even remember her name. But she was also an underdog, and she pulled out a wicked triangle into I almost cursed. A triangle into an armbar. But it was so amazing. If you want to check out my article for that one, just go to sbrpicks.com/UFC. Now, Matt, I want to hear how your Saturday went.
Well, walking into UFC, the card last weekend, we all kind of felt like this card was needed to over-deliver. And from the opening of the main card to the end of the night, we were taken on a wild ride. And from the main event, you know, Lee, you said it yourself. You thought this was going to a decision. Kamaru Usman came out of the gate with something to prove. He and Burns, they both went to war, but Burns was not prepared for what Kamaru Usman has been learning, what he's been applying. No one took lessons from the Colby Covington fight. Colby Covington got pieced up in that fight by Kamaru Usman. And what he did, a masterclass against Jorge Masvidal, and yeah, you could say 6 days notice and all this other nonsense, but this is the prime of Kamaru Usman's career in a division that he has summarily planted himself at the top of. I know, Dave, you said a Colby Covington fight would really be interesting to you, but, you know, what have we seen from Colby Covington? Give me something tangible to say that he has the prime value. He's backing out of a Leon Edwards fight. Colby Covington has turned into the character that we all knew that he was, the carny that he is, and he continues to prove that he is someone with a very acute skill set, but when the bright lights are on, much like when he's talking, he needs all the help he can get.
No, I think you got me wrong. Hey, I do not want to see Covington Usman again, to be fair. What I meant was that Covington is, he's came the closest. He won a round against Usman. Nobody else has even come close, other than Burns dropping Usman. He's been completely dominant. That's what I meant by that. I don't think there is a fight for Usman right now. And I think that's why the Masvidal fight could potentially happen, because there is nothing out there. What is there for him? Look at the top in the division. He's beat most of them. It's there's nothing there, and that's what dominance is, though. And I think he's going to continue that, no matter who they put in front of him.
And I apologize to my friend Dave for misconstruing his words.
No, try and put me out here as a Covington fan. I'm
not trying to do that.
I think he's an incredible fighter, but the rest of it, not about that life.
Yeah, I think we all know Matt is not a Covington fan, so that's what I'm thinking. Is that biased or no for your remarks? But anyway, just that's in the past now. Let's move on to this upcoming weekend because, like I said earlier, we have a great card. So let's start with the first fight on the main card. We have middleweight Phil Hawes versus Nassourdine Imavov via BetOnline. Phil Hawes is -115 and Imavov is -105. Dave, I'll start with you for your breakdown and pick for the first fight.
Yeah, usually I'd moan when they're putting two newcomers on a main card, but you know what? Stylistically, this is a great fight, and who doesn't love the Dagestanis? Imavov, the Russian sniper. He's training at MMA lab in Paris, so he's got the #1 heavyweight Francis Ngannou on side. He's got a 9-2 record right now, and he's on a 6-fight win streak. Entering the fight this weekend. Out of his 8 professional fights, 7 of these were stopped in the first round. So he's not playing around. He wants to come in there, get the job done quick. And then he's got 2 blemishes on his record, and they come from a guillotine defeat. One of them was a guillotine in his first pro fight, and then I think he took a decision loss back in 2017. So it's not like, he's getting put out of here left, right, and centre. An unlucky guillotine in his pro debut. What can we say about that? Primarily, he's a striker, very light on his feet. He's got quick footwork and movement. He loves his jabs and his 1-2s. I think his main weapon, most dangerous weapon, is probably his right hand. His right hand is connected a lot, won a lot of fights for him. He's young. The problems I have with his striking is that he leaves his head out there for the counter shots quite often, and that's something that this guy needs to work on. His debut, UFC debut against Jordan Williams was a good look. As I mentioned, that heavy right hand, it works, and it works nicely. And throwing up several guillotine attempts in that fight as well. Takedown attempts were there. It was for me, that fight was a good 15-minute experience for a guy who's finished a lot of his fights early. It's good to come in the UFC, get a full 15 minutes under his belt, under them bright lights, and take that experience, and then maybe come into his next one and go for something a bit more impressive. But he's fighting a guy in Phil Hawes who's coming out of Sanford MMA. We know the beasts that are at that gym. Usman, who we were just talking about. This guy began his pro MMA debut, and he knocked on the door of Jackson Wink. I think I mentioned this in a breakdown we did on Phil Hawes before, and he just became known as a gym rat. He had a couple $100 in his pocket, and I think he's been at Jackson Wink ever since. And with guys like John Jones in there, he got on well at that gym. Fellow Iowa State junior wrestling champion. So he's definitely building his game. And it seems like it's been a long time that he's been doing it, because he's been on Ultimate Fighter, he's been on Dana White Contender Series. He disappeared. I think it was a 3-year period, and then he returned, and he just looks so damn good with a first-round knockout. And since moving to Sanford from Jackson Wink, he's been undefeated. He's now 1-0 in the UFC, and that 18-second knockout that he had makes me want to back him. It really does. He's a strong wrestler with some damn heavy hands, and his style was very reminiscent of the majority of the talent that we see coming out of Sanford MMA, you know, grappling strong with just bombs in their hands. A lot of these wrestlers, they love to tune up their striking at Sanford because of guys like Henry Hooft, Cami Barzini, and Greg Jones. They're just so good at implementing MMA striking into wrestlers' blueprints and game plans for their fights. But Hawes is not the biggest middleweight at 6 foot. I think that's one thing that might go against him in this division. But, you know, he has proved that he can overcome these bigger men. BSTF on Dana White Contender Series, he was another victim of a Hawes round 1 knockout, which was absolutely beautiful. He's a physical specimen. He's got the tools to do great things. He's at the best gym. I'm really excited to see a couple more highlight reels from Hawes. Now, this line, these odds, they're tight for a reason. It's a key fight to put money behind just because both men lack in UFC experience. We haven't seen a lot of it. Now, with that said, I think Hawes holds the advantages in all the areas. On the feet, his power's more lethal. He's not the more technical striker of the two, but I do not like Imavov's defensive movements. And once he's loaded up, he loads these shots and throws them, and there's so much room for countering that it would make me very nervous against a guy like Hawes and that power. So I would not be surprised if Hawes gets this one done by TKO. On the ground, Hawes has a huge advantage with his wrestling background. Imavov does throw up submissions. He has grappled in the past, but when it comes to the wrestling, this is gonna be Hawes, and that's where Hawes will have the advantage, the bigger advantage, I believe. You know, if he, you know, avoiding them submissions, when it comes to top game and wrestling offense, Imavov is going to struggle severely, I think. Hawes has more tricks in his bag. He's got more tools at his disposal. I think he's stronger, and I think he's going to get this one done by TKO or knockout.
I'm with you on Hawes with that one. And I was actually looking at the odds that I wrote down on the 15th. Imavov was an underdog, so the money is coming in on Imavov, so keep an eye out for that. But how about you, Matt? What is your breakdown and pick for this fight with Hawes versus Imavov?
Well, when you take a look at their road to Saturday night, it's a very similar road. When you take 5 straight wins for Phil Hawes, including his last fight, which was his UFC debut, a first-round knockout against Malkoun. Imavov has 6 straight wins, including his October debut. Both of these guys are on parallel tracks to Saturday night. For Hawes, he's only went past the first round 4 times in his career, never seen a decision. Hell, he's never even seen the 3rd round. In terms of Imavov, he's 2-1 when it comes to going to the scorecards. He's only been to the decision 3 times. I was going back and forth in my head. If you saw me kind of dazing off, it's not because I'm not paying attention to what Dave is having to say, but I'm trying to implement what Dave is saying to kind of form my opinion, because this fight for me is very much a toss-up. Because even though Hawes has all the skills and has brought it up, and he hasn't lost since 2017, the same thing for Imavov. Imavov has not lost since October 2017, and that was by decision. So the deeper this fight goes, if this fight goes to the midway point of the 2nd round, if this fight reaches the over, which I think is about 1.5 rounds, I'm not necessarily sure, Lee, you can keep me honest on that, it's Imavov's fight to lose. But if Hawes can keep pressure early, and we are in Vegas, we are in the baby cage, and Imavov, 1/3 of his wins have come by knockout or TKO, but 7, all but 2 of Hawes' wins have come by knockout or TKO. So if Hawes can keep the pressure early, I like him winning 1st round, maybe early 2nd, getting a TKO against Imavov. But Imavov's got a chin. We've never seen it tested. We've never seen it tested like this. I think it's going to be Hawes, but if you're looking at something, I would kind of look at Imavov in the over if you're trying to do a parlay.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at the over-under right now, and it's over or under 1.5 rounds, and both of them are at -115. So if you do want to get in on this fight again via BetOnline, Hawes is -115 and Imavov is -105. Let's move on to the next fight. Okay, we have heavyweight. Aleksei Olynyk versus Chris Daukaus. Via BetOnline, Daukaus is -165 and Olynyk is +145. Matt, I'll continue with you for your breakdown and pick for the next fight.
We've got ourselves a Hawes fight. We got a big boy fight. It's like a Donkey Kong kill screen. Someone has to go. Daukaus is on a 3-fight winning streak, all of them by KO or TKO in the first round. He has not lost since 2019, and that predates his UFC debut. He's only went to the scorecards and the third round once in his career. This man likes to get things done in 10 minutes, no more, no less. His total cage time in the UFC, guys, is 5 minutes and 13 seconds. So he barely has averaged a full round of competition inside the octagon. But he's been knocked out twice. He's been submitted once. He's susceptible. And when you're going up against a veteran like Aleksei Olynyk, who has won 59 times in his career, you take a look at some of the people that Olynyk has fought in his last 5 fights. He's 2-3 in his last 5, and those losses are against Derrick Lewis back in August, Walt Harris in 2019, and Overeem in 2019. But he beat Fabricio Verdum and Maurice Green. Yeah, the Verdum fight was a split decision, but he was able to make Maurice Green tap. And when you compare, I would say out of those 5 opponents, Green might be the most comparable to Daukaus. When you take a look at time inside the octagon, you take a look at all the intangibles leading into that fight, it's hard to compare him again. Maybe a Walt Harris, you could compare him to Walt Harris a little closer, but those two guys are kind of your comparables when you're looking at a Chris Daukaus. Maurice Green, Olynyk's knocked out 8, has had 46 wins by submission. Yeah. So if this goes to the ground, Chris Daukaus needs to talk to whatever thing in the clouds, whether he's a frisbeeist or something else, to kind of figure a way out of that one, because he has tapped before. He has never won by submission. If this fight goes to the ground, it is all Aleksei Olynyk. He's done it 46 times. He's only been tapped twice. In over 60 fights, he has only been to the scorecards a total of 9 times, and 4 of them have come in the last 11 years. So since 2010, he has only seen a decision 4 times, and that's an insane number for me. I'm talking myself into Olynyk here, especially when you look at all the opponents and the comparables. Daukaus is a great young fight. He's a guy on the come up in the heavyweight division. Even though he's had 13 fights, he's been in the UFC. This is his 4th fight inside the octagon. So for me, it's all about Olynyk being able to utilize that veteran advantage, utilize the space of the octagon, and try to get this fight to the ground.
Yeah. When I was looking into this fight, I was very stuck, because it's like, Chris Daukaus, he can win by a TKO or knockout, but then we have Olynyk that could possibly take it to the ground and get a submission. So that's where I'm tossing it up right there. So I'm not sure. But Dave, I want to hear what you have to say for this next fight.
Well, there's a couple things that the internet forgets to mention. And Chris Daukaus, however it's pronounced, he's the owner of a black belt. He has a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He knows how to defend submissions. He has a submission loss on his career, during his career, to Sean Teed, who is a 6'5", 300-pound jiu-jitsu expert. So, to take that loss early in your career, I'll take that one. And look, Olynyk, 74 professional fights later, age 43. This guy is still attempting every choke on the jiu-jitsu list that is known to man. He was a veteran at M1 Global. He's fought all around the world, Bellator, KSW, everywhere. Since, I think, 2013, this guy has been in the UFC and just doing what he's done everywhere else in the world, and that's either tapping people or getting finished. He joined American Top Team. He left Russia, joined American Top Team, and I think he's gone 6-4 since. And when you look at Olynyk's losses, Curtis Blaydes, Overeem, Harris, Lewis, what do all them men have in common? They all have power to finish a fight, right? Now he's not just a Brazilian. It's not so much his Brazilian jiu-jitsu, it's the Japanese jiu-jitsu of Olynyk, where he is, I think he's like 3rd or 4th degree black belt in Japanese jiu-jitsu. He's an international master of sports, a sambo. Whether there's a gi involved or there's no gi involved, Olynyk just taps guys since he was a kid. And Ezekiel choke, I don't think there's nobody in the history of martial arts that has 14 Ezekiel chokes. It's just ridiculous. He neck cranks people into tapping. He's so strong. His arms are so strong that if he gets a squeeze of anywhere, he is going to put you out. But But Chris Daukaus, he does impress me. He fights out of Martinez, BJJ, MMA. He does have a black belt. He is significantly younger, 10 years younger. He's got a weird story. He's actually a police officer, and I still think he's a Philadelphia police officer today, as we speak now. So he's competing in the UFC, being a police officer. I'm not sure how much that hinders the training process. But Daukaus is one of them UFC fighters who has that speed of a welterweight. 2 fights in the UFC, 2 knockouts. He fought a heavy-handed guy in Parker Porter, who he dropped in the first round, and then he fought, which is very significant for this next fight, a jiu-jitsu practitioner in Rodrigo Nascimento. He knocks Nascimento out in the first round too. Now, he's got that BJJ black belt, which he earned alongside his brother, Kyle Daukaus, who's fighting in, I think, the welterweight or lightweight division right now. But it's his striking and his hand speed that have been imperative in helping him succeed. So not many people even realize that Daukaus can roll on the floor, because we haven't seen it. We don't need to see it. He's knocking everyone out. And he comes into his fights at around 230 pounds. Okay, not 260, not 250, 230 pounds. So that speed advantage is always going to be there. Now, against a guy like Olynyk, who is so slow at punching, to get knocked out by him, you're going to have to be like just not paying attention, looking at the clock or something. Daukaus is masterful and precise with that right hand, like right hooks, right crosses. He always lands on the button. Give this guy 10 UFC fights and then go back to his significant strike percentage. I'm telling you now, it's going to be up there. I have to take a shot on Chris Daukaus this weekend. I think he can come out and really put it on Olynyk. And, Olynyk's going to want to clinch, grapple, get this straight to the ground. And it's a position where I think, unlike Maurice Green, Daukaus just has more experience in jiu-jitsu, and he's going to be able to get out of those positions. And as soon, if Olynyk does get it to the ground, and as soon as this fight gets back to the feet, whether that be the end of the round, making them stand for the next round, or whatever it may be, I just don't think Olynyk's going to have the gas tanks to survive 15 minutes against Daukaus's onslaught of strikes. Daukaus is not a stupid fighter. He's a smart fighter. I know he's going to come into this fight. He's going to know the dangers, and I think he's just going to want to get it done just quick. And he's going to throw bombs. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think, even though it's not an easy task, I think that Daukaus can put himself up there. And he will get a big fight if he defeats Olynyk this weekend. So I'm backing Chris Daukaus to win. Look at these two guys' records. It's not going the distance. So obviously Daukaus by TKO. Or do you know what? After last weekend and Rodolfo Vieira getting tapped out, I would not be surprised if Olynyk could be so gassed where he's in a position where he gets tapped out too. I bet the odds on that are ridiculous. But don't throw all your money on that, because that's a reach. But yeah, I'm going with Daukaus. I'm going against the grain.
Like I said, it's a toss-up because we have Matt with Olynyk, and then we have Dave with Daukaus. So I need to look more into it. But if you guys do want to get in on this fight again via BetOnline, Daukaus is minus 165 and Olynyk is plus 145. Let's move on to the next fight. We have featherweight Charles Rosa versus Derrick Minor. Via BetOnline, Rosa is minus 180 and Minor is plus 155. Now, before I get into the breakdowns, we have in the chats, Magdalene Sports says Charles Rosa by decision. Dave, I'd like to hear your thoughts for this next fight.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Before we go on to this next fight, am I late to the show? Has the Tom Aspinall fight been cancelled? Because I thought it was on the main card, and I was really looking forward to breaking that down. But I feel like
I'm pretty sure it's on the prelims now.
Well, that's a damn shame. They must have moved it.
I'll have it for you in like 2 seconds. Yeah, it's the last fight on the prelim card, so we got moved to the prelims, unfortunately. Right. But yeah, for that fight, Tom Aspinall for sure.
Yeah, this fight that we're talking about next, Charles Rosa versus Darrick. Is it Darrick? Darrick Minor. Minna. I don't know. I don't like this guy that much, man. When I'm watching his fight tape, he's not giving me too much to go off. The guy just wants to choke people. Literally, that's all he wants to do. And do you know what? During his professional career, he's got 22 submissions or something ridiculous.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure he didn't even mean to find American Top Team either. He stumbled across this, moved to Florida, and I think he's just been there ever since, rolling around with these guys. It's actually insane that these odds are not higher, I believe. I think Charles Rosa should be a bit higher. Minor came into the UFC as a bit of a lamb to the slaughter, really, in my opinion. They brought him in on a last-minute notice fight. He got wiped out. Yeah, he did come into the next fight and get a win. And it sounds, I hate sounding like I'm disrespecting these guys, but I just don't think he's got, what it takes to fight in the UFC. Go and look at that Grant Dawson fight. When he fought a guy with some serious jiu-jitsu skills, his submission offense was nothing. He was hanging onto a guillotine with his life, and he just kept going back to the guillotine. And that's not a fight I want to put my money behind. That's not a smart way to fight. Gassing your arms out with a guillotine. Try something else. But I think Rosa here is going to hold the advantage in all areas. The guy's never been submitted. Even that animal Bruce Mitchell couldn't get Rosa to tap. Points of that fight, I was thinking, how is this guy even surviving through Bruce Mitchell's holds? But he did, and he survived the spamming submissions from Bryce Mitchell. And I just don't think Darrick Minor is going to be able to get Rosa in a position other than maybe, one of them guillotines where he's even going to get any output at all whatsoever. Rosa's a black belt under Ricardo Libori, who's one of the top black belts trained by Grandmaster Carlson Gracie. So we know that Rosa's game is no joke. When you go back and look at that Bryce Mitchell fight, it makes complete sense why he couldn't tap him. And when it comes to striking, Rosa's not no power punch. I don't think, he's got that capability of performing a knockout, but a technical knockout, I could definitely see that happening in this fight. He stems from a background in karate, and you can see that as soon as he starts striking. Super wide stance, very reminiscent of Stephen Wonderboy, and the combination is just fast in and out. I don't think Darrick Minor is going to be able to handle that. I could see Darrick Minor getting clipped, and like I said, not a knockout, but a technical knockout stoppage is definitely possible in this fight. And then if it goes to the mat, I think Charles Rosa is going to submit him. I really do. For Darrick Minor's 22 or however many submission wins he's got, he also has 8 or 9 submission losses, and that's because he just puts himself in positions that is not good. And when he's getting these submissions against guys, it's low level guys, inexperienced guys. Who was the guy he came back against? TJ Lamery, 22, young kid. He didn't have the experience, weren't there for him, so I'm not surprised that Minor won that fight. But he's going to come in now against Rosa, 34-year-old American top team veteran, and I think that it's going to be all Rosa in this one. And I really do like Rosa this week. His strike, like I said, with his strike in that wide karate stance, bouncing in and out of range. He's got decent kicks, fast combinations. Yeah, he does leave himself open to counters, but I don't think Minor's just got that level of striking to even cause him any problems. He's going to keep this stuff at range on the feet. He's even going to piece him apart and catch him, or Minor's going to want to take this to the ground. These two, they're going to be scrambling. I think Rosa's going to get the better of these scrambles. I think Rosa holds the advantage in all areas. As I mentioned, never been submitted. I really like Rosa in this position, and like I said at the start of this breakdown, I think he should probably hold some more juice. I'd probably bet him, maybe not straight, but parlay was going up to 250. I wouldn't mind it. I just don't think Minor's ready for the UFC.
Very interesting. Well, how about you, Matt? What's your breakdown and pick for this fight? And also, do you think this fight will go the distance or no?
So when we take a look, I'll answer the second question first.
Yeah.
Darrick Minor has not seen a scorecard since 2017. And this is important because he faced someone named Chico Camus. And the opponent's not important, but the name Chico Camus, that is a Hall of Fame mixed martial arts name, and we need to emblazon that with the other ones, raise that one to the rafters, give him a gold jacket or whatever the hell. Yeah, this fight's not going to a decision. Darrick Minor has spent less than half a full round inside the octagon across his 2 fights. He's been knocked out twice, knocked out one opponent. And yeah, the reason why I think this fight, when you look at the odds, is a little too close for what Dave and even what I would think is a fair equitable transfer here. They're both 500 in their last couple of fights. As they're 500 in the UFC. Derrick Miner's 1-1. Charles Rosa's 4-4 in his UFC career. And he's alternated wins and losses. So the entire time, this is Rosa's 9th fight. His last fight was in June, which was a split decision win against Kevin Aguilar. Now, I'm not saying those who are putting odds on the fight are looking at that and looking at that pattern and making that the cornerstone for the entire reason they think that they can give a little more action towards Miner. But I'm looking at that and I'm like, that's a pattern that exists for a reason, and I don't know why. You don't know why things like that exist in the world, especially in mixed martial arts. But yeah, I don't think Derrick Miner is ready for prime time. I don't think he's ready to face an opponent like Charles Rosa, who's not one of the elites at featherweight. He's a very good fighter, but look at who he's lost to in the octagon, Charles Rosa. Dennis Silver in 2014, Yair Rodriguez in 2015, Shane Burgos, Bryce Mitchell. These are top quality opponents, and with the exception of the Burgos loss in 2017, all by way of decision. So Rosa is in the fight all 3 rounds, and in that time period, he got a split decision against Aguilar, so you can kind of see that as a toss-up in terms of a win or a loss. He tapped out Manny Bermudez. He got Kyle Bochanek in a decision, and he got Sean Serrano in his second UFC fight by submission. It's obviously not going to be a TKO or a KO. I'm aligned with Dave in saying that this is going to be Charles Rosa getting his first winning streak in the UFC, and he'll do it probably midway through the fight by submission, or Miner just completely gets lost in the lights and gets taken down in round 1.
And to add to that, the Shane Burgos fight, he was winning. And it was unfortunate because when it got into the 3rd round, Shane Burgos, his team said to him, you need to finish this to be sure. Shane Burgos came out. And what happened was Rosa made the mistake of getting in the pocket. His striking is done best at range. He got in the pocket with Shane Burgos for 2 seconds and he got dropped. That was it. It was over for him. And the Yair Rodriguez fight, it was a split decision, which, Yair did have a few more significant strikes, but that could have gone either way also. So this alternating wins and losses, I don't think there's too much to it. I think it's just Rosa's been a bit unfortunate. And with the Bryce Mitchell fight, I think that was his only dominant loss in the last 6 or 7 years. Like, that is the only person that has dominated Rosa, and all Bryce Mitchell did was spam submission attempts and use his heavy top game to keep Rosa in position. But a guy like Miner, he's nowhere near the same skill level as Mitchell, and he's nowhere near the same skill level as the guys that Rosa's already fought. So yeah, it's got to be all Rosa this weekend, I think.
And I'm looking at the over-under right now on BetOnline. It's over-under 2.5 rounds. The over is at plus 150 and the under is at minus 180. So everyone's expecting a stoppage. So if you guys do want to get on this, again, via BetOnline, Rosa is minus 180 and Derrick Miner is plus 155. But let's move on to the co-main event. And I will say this slowly for everyone to understand. Women's Bantamweight. There we go. Women's Bantamweight. Ketlen Vieira versus Yana Kunitskaya. Every time I would say women's Bantamweight, it's women's Bantamweight. Ketlen Vieira versus Yana Kunitskaya, and I have not heard her name in so long. Via BetOnline, Vieira is minus 270 and Kunitskaya is plus 230. Matt, I'm going to continue with you for your breakdown and pick for the co-main.
All right, I don't mean to be morose, but bring out your dead. Yana Kunitskaya is coming off a decision win against Julia Solorenko back in August. But prior to that, got dropped by Aspen Ladd, had a 2-fight winning streak, and then a loss to Chris Cyborg. She is a former Invicta Bantamweight champion. That's nothing to sniff at. But facing top opponents, Yana Kunitskaya is 0-3-0 and 1 no contest, which was against Tanya Evinger for a title in Invicta. And that fight got overturned because of poor refereeing. So that's not a good resume. And Yana Kunitskaya is a notable name. She's not a bad fighter. She's knocked out 7 opponents. She's gotten 5 decision wins and submitted once. But anytime she's on the ground, she's 1-2 when the finish has come from the ground. And then She's only been knocked out once, but then you look at Ketlen Vieira. She's 5-1 in the UFC. That is not an easy accomplishment. And her last fight was back in September against Sijara Eubanks. Her only career loss was a knockout against Irene Aldana. I really don't think that she'll have to worry too much about Kunitskaya's power in this fight. I say that, but it is in the baby cage, and you throw out any idea of whatever the hell it could be once that cage gets smaller. But both of these fighters, they've had a decent layoff, about a 6-7 month layoff, and submission win against all but her loss to Aldana, and it has been a submission win against Sarah McMahon. I'm going with Ketlen Vieira here. I'm going with the fighter who's on a bit more of a streak. I'm going with someone who's pieced together more fights over this period. We've seen Kunitskaya kind of come and go, has not been necessarily consistent, and you can blame, the pandemic for all of that, and you can blame all these other intangibles. Not everybody can fight as frequently as we would like them to, or they would like to. But when it comes to this, I'm going with my gut here, and I'm going with Vieira.
No, yeah, I was looking into this actually yesterday, and I was watching the Vieira versus Eubanks fight. Vieira, she's a powerful striker. Like when you see her hit, there's a lot of force behind her strike. So I'm definitely backing Vieira for this one. But Dave, I want to hear what you have to say for the co-main event.
Yana Kunitskaya, the lucky wife of Thiago Santos. Who probably definitely owns some secret lethal leg kicks that we don't know about, thanks to just being around her husband. But jokes aside, she's flying the flag for the Russian women. I don't think we have, if any, other Russian female fighters. I'm not sure. Don't hold me to that. But much like a male Russian counterpart, she's been fighting since she was a kid. The hand-to-hand combat, taekwondo. She fought for M1 Global and then moved to MMA in 2019. She actually, I think she actually became a mother and then quit MMA altogether. And then Invicta came, which was an organization for females only. And, 3 fights later in Invicta, she was fighting in a UFC debut against Cyborg for the championships. Now, I was talking about Lamb to the Slaughter earlier. If that is not Lamb to the Slaughter, then I don't know what was. I think that was just one of them UFC moments where it's like, we need to get Cyborg a fight. And with that said, that's experience, And she does like to stand and pressure strikes. She's got a Muay Thai stance. I believe she's won Muay Thai tournaments as well at some point during her professional mixed martial arts career. But that Muay Thai is mainly used for clinch to initiate grappling exchanges, where Yana is very comfortable. Now, she's a big girl for this bantamweight division, and she has been able to use her size and strength. You look at all her wins, they have all came with the size advantage. She's got great sweeps and trips and traditional takedowns. She likes to get the fight to the ground and land strikes. This has been her game plan against these weaker, smaller girls, which ends up being the majority of her opponents, since she's quite big for the bantamweight division. It's very well-rounded. But I'd like to say that her main weakness is probably pressure. If you allow Yana to find her flow and let her dictate the pace of the fight, you're gonna be in for a long night. She might even Usman ya, just hold you against the cage, and you'll get not foot stomps, but you get some elbows, some knees, stuff like that. And then we've got Ketlen Vieira, 11-1-0. Judo BJJ practitioner since she was a kid as well. The coach of Jose Aldo picked up Vieira. When she transitioned to martial arts, she remained undefeated on the Brazilian regional MMA scene. She debuted in the UFC in 2016, and she's only averaged one fight per year. That's my problem with Vieira. I haven't seen her enough. I want to see her more because she's so damn good that I want to see her fight everyone and see what she's got to offer. She kept that streak going until she was matched up with Irene Aldana, where I believe she should have known where Aldana's strengths were, and she should have took that fight to the ground. Now, not to knock Ketlen's striking, because she has got decent striking, but Irene was clearly waiting for her and waiting for that counter. And you know what? The counter didn't happen. She ended up pressuring and dropped her with a right hook, and I was like, oh, okay. I think that was the first time I'd bet on Vieira. She was -175. And I lost. So I'm 0-1 backing Ketlen, but I really do think she's going to take this one. BJJ black belt, judo black belt, Brazilian national wrestling champion. She's great in the clinch. She's got great takedowns, heavy top game, and also confident on her feet. As you mentioned, Lee, in that Sijara Eubanks fight, she's come off a knockout loss and she's wanted to trade with Eubanks. Fair enough. She wasn't hesitant about the striking, and also is a great grappler. So, you know, she's got a few problems that you see happen quite often. Is, you know, when someone's doing a combination, she resets a lot, which is quite readable. But I don't think Yana Kunitskaya's got that knockout power. You know, these wins by knockout, it's not knockout, it's technical knockout. So that's stoppage. That's a ref coming in and stopping the flurry of strikes. So I don't think there's going to be a power issue here. And, you know, my main point at the start of this breakdown, Kunitskaya's size has helped her. She is going to be the smaller girl here because Ketlen Vieira is 5'8", and she is one of the biggest girls in this division. So Yana's not going to have a lot of them advantages that she's had. And when I look at Vieira's career and who she's fought, and when you go over her fights, some impressive stuff going on. The Sarah McMahon fight, she was being dominated, but off her back, her jiu-jitsu was just there constantly. And then after, you know, getting out-wrestled in the first by an Olympic wrestler and then getting wrestled by her in the second, she got that arm triangle quick and got out of there. Boom. And that's shown how damn good she is on the floor. And then Kat Zingano, another fight. Ignore it. Says split decision on the record. Ignore that. That was a unanimous beating. I don't watch that. I don't know what the judge was smoking, but that was a unanimous win for Vieira there. Aldana fight, hiccup. Eubanks, the comeback fight, looked great. Now she's got a bit of a name in Kunitskaya. I think she's going to do well. I think, you know, Yana is tough, so I'd probably go Vieira by decision. But I do think she gets the job done. I just don't like the odds on a straight betting position because, you know, Kunitskaya she's no bum. She's got the skills. So although the odds are a bit juiced, you know, yeah, I think if I did bet this one, I'd have to take a prop and add the decision to it as well. Yeah,
Vieira by points. I should bring that up, but whatever. But I'm looking at the over. I have to open up a new page and everything. I'm not doing that right now. But yes, I'm looking at the over and under over 2.5 rounds is -335. So that's big. But anyway, via Bet Online, if you want to get on the co-main, Vieira is -270 and Kunitskaya is +230. Now let's move on to the main event, and I'm sweating. Sorry. Okay, we have heavyweight Curtis Blaydes versus Derrick Lewis. And I'm sorry, when I was breaking down this fight, this is another fight, like a main event, where I'm stuck. Because part of me wants to back Curtis Blaydes, but I feel like Derrick Lewis is going to run by his nickname, the Black Beast, and just pull out a TKO or something. But I really need to hear what you guys have to say so you can save me from how I'm feeling right now. So, Dave, I am going to continue with you for your breakdown and pick for the main event.
Do you know what? We should be celebrating for Matt, really, because let's look at this card. This is a heavyweight card. We have a lot of heavyweight this entire card. Yeah, and as I mentioned before, we didn't get to do it because it was a prelim fight, but my boy Tom Aspinall, don't be doubt. I see people doubting Tom Aspinall here. Arlovsky ain't ready for Tom Aspinall. I'm telling you that now. But this
we can
fight,
break that one next. Yeah. Break that one down next.
Derrick Lewis. There's not much introduction needed for this guy. It says it all in his nickname, the Black Beast. Yeah. He's had 31 professional MMA fights, and he's won 19 of those by knockout. He's got some of the most dangerous knockout power in the entire roster. Nobody has that power other than Francis Ngannou, let's be honest. He's made a name knocking other men out. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Majority of his career, he's spent at the UFC. And, you know, 35. I call him the 35-year-old soul taker because he's just been taking souls for the past decade, and he continues to do so. I don't think it's ever going to stop for Lewis. In fact, he's starting to look better, more in shape, slimmer. Before, he used to be quite thick and coming quite heavy. Now Lewis he's really taking this stuff serious. And he's also picked up a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blue belt in recent times, which, I don't think he's going to come out here and start throwing up triangles. But it's good to have that defense in your back pocket because, if you want to be challenging for the title against the world's best, you need to know everything. So I do respect that from Derrick Lewis's evolution in his game. But he's got a super tough fight here. Look, there's no doubt in my mind, if Curtis Blaydes competed in this division minus Francis Ngannou, he would either be the champion or challenging for the title right now. There's no doubt about it. He's absolutely incredible. How can Lewis win this fight? I mean, it's your classic striker versus grappler matchup here. It's going to be easy to sit here and say, well, the advantage on the feet is all for Lewis, but that's not really the case. After a certain amount of rounds, he's going to slow down. I think the plan here for Lewis is simple. I know I did mention he's got BJJ, and I don't think that's going to come into play whatsoever, other than defense maybe. The game plan's obvious here for Lewis. Keep this standing, try and box, not even so much box, but just throw them bombs and a hope that he can land. That's his game plan. Blaydes is a complete martial artist. He's good in every area, but he is dominant in the wrestling. The athleticism Blaydes is a huge advantage in this. He's going to hold speed, agility, size, age advantage against the legend Lewis here. He knows that Lewis's weaknesses in the past have involved grappling, and it's going to be a heavy-based wrestling strategy for Blaydes. That's what it's going to be in this fight. He's not going to stand there and exchange with Lewis, is he? He's going to be exchanging with Lewis to just set up the takedown, set up that level change, and get this fight to the ground, where he does in, a lot of his fights. Can he take Lewis down? Yes, I think he can. I agree with the bookmaker. I completely agree with the price. It's juiced now. I agree with the opening line, not the line now. But it keeps sailing up and up. And the further that sails up, that's not a price you want to be backing against a guy like Lewis, who could end your night so quick. So in terms of a prediction and trying to find some value, I don't think anybody is going to the 5th round in this one. It's going to be hard for me to envision these two making it. It's going to be Lewis catching Blaydes with not even a shock anymore. I'm just going to say with a knockout, or it's going to be Blaydes wrestling Lewis and utilizing some ground and pound to a point where Lewis will not be able to take anymore. For me, it's Blaydes inside the distance. I've seen prices plus 110, plus 120, plus 110 floating around different prices. Be sure to check for your odds, obviously, at Sportsbook Review to get the best value. Personally, I got plus 120, and if you can get that, I think that's a great price for Blaydes to get this done inside the distance.
Beautiful. And I just realized I never read the odds for the main event because I'm getting so distracted by the main event. But Blaydes is minus 450 and Derrick Lewis is plus 350. And then there's also the over and under 1.5. The over 1.5 is minus 185 and the under is plus 155. But Matt, I would love to hear what you have to say for the main event.
It is well recorded on this show that I like it when large humans punch each other about the face. I've said it numerous times. I have called for someone to let me fund my own thick fight card at some point. I'm still waiting for that phone call. We've got a whole light heavyweight Grand Prix over there at Bellator. Give me the money. But much like Michael Scott trying to figure out what Meryl Streep movie to watch, I am in quite a quandary here today. The Francis Ngannou thing on both sides is an interesting point of discussion because Dave said without those two Francis Ngannou fights, Curtis Blaydes is either UFC heavyweight champion or fighting for the title, fighting against Stipe Miocic instead of Francis Ngannou. But Derrick Lewis did beat Francis Ngannou in what could be the worst UFC fight since they got away from tournaments, at least in the heavyweight division. And with everything going on in Texas right now, and my thoughts are with everyone dealing with the inexplicable issues going down there due to the weather and, lacking power, heat, water. It's a terrible thing. Shout out to all my friends down there in Texas. But for me, I wonder how much of that is going to affect Derrick Lewis, how much of that is going to affect his mindset heading into the fight, because Derrick Lewis is an emotional human being. He wears everything about him on his sleeve, but when he gets inside the octagon, how much of that is going to carry over into this fight? Is he going to let that charge him up? Either way, I am very scared to put anything on it. I think we're going to go over a round and a half. I don't think we get into the third round, to be honest with you. I don't think we get into championship rounds or main event rounds, whatever the hell you want to call them. You look at the opponents, and there's a lot of common opponents between these two. Both of them have fought Aleksei Olynyk. Both of them have stopped Aleksei Olynyk. Derrick Lewis's last two losses were to Junior Dos Santos and Daniel Cormier. One was the current UFC heavyweight champion. The other one was a UFC heavyweight champion. But since then, he's on a 3-fight winning streak. Blaydes on a 4-fight winning streak. But you look at the opponents, they have a common opponent in JDS, both of them TKO in JDS. But then you've got Justin Willis, Shamil Abdul-Rakimov, and then Alexander Volkov. And another common opponent. Both of these guys have done that. And then that Volkov fight is another interesting point there, because heading into the final seconds of that Volkov fight, Derrick Lewis was being outclassed. And then he threw the Hail Mary of Hail Marys. He went full ghost to the post and landed that shot to bring down Volkov. But this is so hard. But I'm going to go with Derrick Lewis. I'm going to pick the underdog in this fight. Half because I love Derrick Lewis and I love watching him fight, and you kind of root for him. But also, I think with everything going on right now, I think he's gonna turn what's going on in Texas into positive energy. He's gonna carry it in there, and he's gonna put on a show. And when Derrick Lewis is locked in, focused, and healthy, there's not many, if any, who could beat him inside that cage.
Very interesting. Well, if you guys do like the dog odds on that, that's a lot of value. It's plus 350 for Derrick Lewis, so there you have it. But again, the odds via Bet Online, Curtis Blaydes is minus 450, and again, Derrick Lewis plus 350. So that's all we have for the main card. Now, before we go, like always, I just need to ask, and Matt, I'll start with you. Is there a prelim fight that you're looking out for, or a lock on the card?
Well, the Tom Aspinall fight obviously is the one we're looking at the prelims. And I'll pivot to Dave on that. In terms of locks on this card, I'm gonna go with, in terms of this, I'm gonna go in a lock. My notes just completely froze, because why not? I'm going with Ketlen Vieira. Ketlen Vieira is my lock this week. Ketlen Vieira is my lock of the week. Despite everything that Dave said for Yana Kunitskaya, putting it up for her, I'm going with Vieira. I think she's my lock this week, at least on the main card. There's a lot of other things where I was trying to stay away, and I want to make Derrick Lewis my lock. I definitely, desperately do, but I can't. I just can't in good conscience.
No, I love that you said Ketlen Vieira, because I think that she's my lock too, because I have her minus 270 and by points at minus 125. So she's definitely my lock. But Dave, now is the time to talk about Tom Aspinall, a prelim fight that you're looking out for, or a lock on the card.
Yeah, well, look, as much as I like Tom Aspinall, I'm not gonna start throwing out locks and stuff. Lock, if you want a lock, I mean, Charles Rosa. When I look at this card and I look at opposition and the level of opponent they're facing, Charles Rosa sticks out to me. He really does. Yeah. But Tom Aspinall, obviously, I'm English and Tom's English, so you know how I hold no bias towards English fighters. I always keep it completely fair, but somehow I always end up backing them. I don't know how that happens. It's just it's just my honest opinion. It just
happens.
Seriously.
Oh yeah, just.
But come on. He trains with Darren Till, and look, I'm seeing all these doubters. It don't make me happy. UK fighters don't get much credit for their martial arts, and I feel that Leon Edwards and Darren Till, they need some backup, and Tom Aspinall is the perfect guy to come in and let people know what's good. This guy loves competition and he loves martial arts. And when I see a fighter and I check out their personal life and I see their interests and their interests steer towards boxing, Thai boxing, wrestling, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, the fact that he's trained with Tyson Fury hired him to be his training partner. All of these things, positives. 5 round 1 consecutive knockouts. He is the fastest heavyweight on the planet. I'm telling you that now. I know I was bigging up Chris Daukaus earlier for his speed, but Tom Aspinall's output is ridiculous for a heavyweight, and he's another guy who likes to come in quite light, not a heavyweight. He doesn't come in at a super heavyweight. Clean striking offense, loves to use feints. He's like a flyweight. I love Tom Aspinall. He's great. True martial artist with a skill set that really stems further than what you see on paper. Okay, 5 round 1 knockouts, but he's got skills everywhere. You just haven't saw it yet. And to be honest, I haven't saw him make a mistake since 2015 where he was heel hooked in Birmingham, 20 minutes from my house. It was an amateur mistake. I'm not taking too much. That was just blah, blah. We're going to forget that one. And his other loss was not a loss. It was an illegal elbow. He accidentally elbowed the dude. Didn't mean it, but he still beat him up anyway. So in my eyes, he won that fight. Obviously, I'm taking Tom Aspinall. Yes. Andrei Arlovski, he has been here longer than anybody. Now, the experience advantage is huge. Andrei Arlovski is also on a winning streak. But his hesitancy in his recent fights and his lack of fight, should I say, depresses the hell out of me. I used to love Andrei Arlovski when he had short hair, was fighting on, I think, UFC 62 in the year 2000 or something ridiculous. And he had a gum shield that had sharp teeth on it. That's when I liked Andrei Arlovski. I'm not a huge fan in 2021 for his skill set against a guy like Tom Aspinall. When I'm seeing Arlovski take close decisions against a guy like, what was his name? Is it Linz? The guy had 7 or 8 significant strikes in rounds 2 and 3. Do you really think a guy like Tom Aspinall is going to come out and only land 7? You're mad. You're mad if you think that's going to happen. This is my boy Aspinall. He's taking this one home. You can get him at close to evens by knockout. I think he's going to do it.
Do you think a round 1 TKO? Do you think he'll get another one?
I don't know, because this is the thing. Arlovski has been good at avoiding them vicious knockouts. It's the pressure fighters that come through. And do you know, I don't know, actually, because the way we saw Rosenstrike come in and just rush Arlovski and get it done with, Tom Aspinall can do the same. Arlovski is not really knocking guys out anymore. It's not there. That same fight is not there.
It hasn't been there in a decade, in my opinion. It hasn't been there in forever. Officially,
when was the last time he got a knockout? Has anybody got? Because it has been so long, I don't remember Arlovski getting a finish. So really, if you are a fighter like Rosenstrike or Ngannou, or you've got that power, and Tom Aspinall does have that power, you can just rush Arlovski and get the fight done with. And I think that's the game plan that I'd tell Tom to take. Just go in there and do what you do. Tom is good at round 1 finishes. The best way to get rid of Arlovski is a round 1 finish. You know what? I wouldn't oppose that. What's the odds on round 1? I can't go against that.
Tom Aspinall in round 1 by TKO or KO is plus 250, and round 2 is plus 600. So I feel like that's good value right there.
It is good value. You could take both of them. And if you took both of them, you could even do a full unit on both of them and still profit either way.
Exactly.
And the last time Andre... Oops, sorry, Dave. Didn't mean to cut you off. But the last time Andrei Arlovski got a knockout win was at UFC 187 against Travis Brown in 2015. And it was at 441 of the first.
Wow. Okay. So, there you go. 6 years against Travis Brown. Nah. I'm not feeling that. And I'm pretty sure that was around the time where Arlovski nearly got cut for a second time too. He went on a mad losing streak. He lost to everyone, I think. And then, yeah, I'm just I'm not an Arlovski backer this weekend. It's nothing to do with the fact that Tom Aspinall's English, and I really support English fighters.
Are you sure?
It's completely to do with the fact that Tom Aspinall is an incredible martial artist. No, in seriousness, he is. Go and watch his fights. Go watch his last 5 fights. It took me 5 minutes, 17 seconds.
Yeah.
To watch his previous 5 fights.
Yeah, no, so I'm definitely going to take him by round 1 TKO because that's plus 250, because him straight up is minus 240. So unless you throw him in a parlay piece, there you had it. But we are running out of time, so that is all we have for our main card breakdowns and our top picks of the week. If you're not following the guys on Twitter, definitely give them a follow. You can follow Dave at @DManion_ and Matt at MRyan Consulting. And then while you're at it, give SBR a follow at SBR Sports Picks. And if you would like more breakdowns and picks from all of SBR's lovely, lovely, lovely UFC experts, just go to sbrpicks.com/UFC. I wish you all the best of luck this weekend, and I'll see you next week.